The first time I saw him was through the crack in my bedroom door. I was 10 years old, tucked into bed, but a sliver of hallway light cut through the darkness, a comforting beacon. Then a shadow fell across it. It was tall, impossibly thin, and wore a pointed hat with bells that didn't jingle. He stood perfectly still, one hand on the doorknob. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't one of my parents. The figure turned its head, and in the dim light, I saw the painted white face. The stark red smile stretched ear to ear, and the 2 black diamonds painted over its eyes. The jester, he just stood there, head tilted, that painted smile fixed on the sliver of space where he knew I was watching. He didn't move for what felt like an hour. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silent house. Finally, with a slow, deliberate movement, he turned and walked away, his silence more terrifying than any sound he could have made. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I told my parents, exchanged worried glances, checked the locks, and assured me it was just a nightmare. It's a very vivid nightmare, sweetie, my mom said, ruffling my hair, but I knew it wasn't. The fear that coiled in my stomach was too real. Life went on, and for a few weeks, I almost convinced myself they were right. The memory started to fade, blurring at the edges like a bad dream. Then it happened again. This time, I was at the park, swinging higher and higher, trying to kick the clouds. As I reached the peak of my arc, a flash of color in the woods at the edge of the park caught my eye. It was him, the jester, leaning against a tree, half hidden by shadows, with that same grotesque smile. He wasn't doing anything, just watching me. The joy of the afternoon evaporated, replaced by a cold dread. I jumped off the swing and ran home, not daring to look back. He never got closer, not physically, but his presence was a constant, suffocating weight. He'd appear in reflections. I'd be washing my hands, and for a split second, I'd see his smiling face in the mirror behind me. I'd whip around, but there was nothing there. I'd see him in crowds, a flash of his garish costume disappearing around a corner. I stopped telling my parents. They just thought I was seeking attention. My friends thought I was making it up to be spooky. I felt utterly alone, haunted by a smiling specter that only I could see. The worst was the silence. The bells on his hat never, ever made a sound. It was like he was a glitch in reality, a character who had forgotten his audio track. His silence was a threat, a promise of something awful held in reserve. Years passed. I moved away for college, hoping to leave him behind, to put miles between us. For the first few months, it worked. The constant knot of fear in my gut began to loosen. I made new friends. I went to parties. I felt normal. For the first time in a decade, I felt free. The jester became a story I told myself, a childhood boogeyman my mind had conjured. I was sitting in a late-night lecture, a huge, tiered hall filled with a few dozen students. I was doodling in my notebook when a strange feeling prickled the back of my neck. That old, familiar cold. I slowly lifted my head and scanned the empty seats in the top rows, and there he was, sitting in the very last row, in the darkest corner of the auditorium. He was leaning forward, elbows on his knees, that painted smile a slash of red in the gloom. He wasn't looking at the professor. He was looking right at me. My blood ran cold. He had followed me. He had found me. The terror came rushing back, stronger than ever before. It wasn't a childhood nightmare. It was real, and it was relentless. After that, his appearances became more frequent and more personal. He'd be standing across the street from my dorm, under a streetlight, his colors lurid against the night. I saw his reflection in my laptop screen as I typed an essay, started failing my classes. I pushed my new friends away. How could I explain that I was being stalked by a silent, smiling jester? They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I was. I went to the campus counseling services. I described him, the silence, the smile. The therapist was kind, patient, She suggested it was a manifestation of my anxiety about being away from home, a symbol of stress. I took the pamphlet she gave me, but I knew she was wrong. Symbol doesn't stand outside your window in the pouring rain. I decided I couldn't run anymore. If he wanted to scare me, I had to confront him. One night, I saw him standing at the far end of the campus quad. It was late. The grounds were deserted. My heart was a jackhammer, but I forced my feet to move. I walked towards him. With every step I took, the world seemed to warp. The air grew heavy. The distant sounds of the city faded away. It was just me and him in our own silent bubble. I got closer and closer, my body screaming at me to turn and run. Okay. He didn't move, just watched me approach, that smile unwavering. I stopped about 10 feet away from him. My voice was a choked whisper. "What do you want?" I asked, the words feeling pathetic and small in the vast silence. He didn't answer. Of course, he didn't. Instead, he did something new. For the first time in all these years, he moved. He slowly, deliberately lifted a white-gloved hand and pointed, not at me, but past me. I didn't want to turn around. Every instinct told me to keep my eyes on him, that turning my back was a death sentence. But his gaze was insistent, the painted smile seeming to widen, to pull at the very edges of his face. My curiosity, my desperation for an answer, it warred with my terror. Finally, I gave in. I took a deep breath and slowly, reluctantly, turned around. I was looking back at my own dorm building. All the windows were dark, except for one, mine, and in the window, silhouetted against the light from my desk lamp, was a figure. A tall, impossibly thin figure, wearing a pointed hat with bells. It was standing inside my room. A wave of vertigo and nausea washed over me. I spun back around, my mind screaming. The quad was empty. The jester I had been walking towards, the one who had pointed, was gone. But I wasn't alone. It's from the direction of my dorm. For the first time in my life, I heard a sound. It was faint at first, then grew clearer as it drifted across the empty quad. It was the soft, delicate, chilling jingle of tiny bells. He was in my room, and he was finally making a sound. He was waiting for me. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the grass, the sound of his jingling bells, a death knell. Ali, he wasn't just following me anymore. Ali, he was inviting me in. The game had changed. Silence was broken, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my very soul, that the real horror was only just beginning. I never went back to that room. I left everything behind: my laptop, my books, my clothes. I dropped out of college that very night, got on a bus with nothing but the wallet in my pocket, and just ran. For years, I've been on the move, never staying in one place for more than a few months. I work odd jobs. I live in cheap motels. I keep to myself. I don't let anyone get close, because how can I put someone else in danger? Sometimes I think I've escaped him. Weeks will go by, months even, with no sign. A fragile hope will start to build in my chest. Maybe he gave up. Maybe he finally found someone else to torment. But then I'll see him. A flash of red and yellow in my rearview mirror. A tall, thin shadow in a grainy security camera feed at a gas station. A silent figure with a painted smile, standing across the street, just watching. And the bells. I hear them sometimes. Now, not all the time. Just when he's close. A faint, distant jingle on the edge of hearing. A little reminder that he's still there. Okay? That he's always there. He's patient. He knows he doesn't need to rush. He's just waiting for me to stop running. But I can't. I can never stop running, because I know what he wants. He wants to play. Okay? And I know the end of his game isn't a punchline. It's a scream. Thanks for listening to my story. If you felt that chill down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there, and maybe check behind you.